Jai Radha Kanaya Lao Swami Maharaj, ISKCON's BBT founder, Acharya, Jagadguru, Patita Pavana, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Amala Purana, Paramahamsa Samhita, Grantaraj, Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Yuga Dharma, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shuddha Premanam, Sankirtan, Mahayagna, Hare Krishna movement ki jai. Brihad Madanga, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Prasadam Distribution ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Deva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda's New York Yatra Dham ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam adirayat. Nastapareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart, verse number 22. Parhayite te nayane naranam lingani vishnur na nirikshato Ye Pado Nirnam To Druma Janma Bhajo Shaitrani Nanu Rajato Harer Yo. Parhayate te nayane naranam lingani vishnur na nirakshato ye padonir nam to druma janma bhajo Shaitrani nanu brajato harer yo. Parhayate te nayane naranam lingani vishnur na nirakshato ye padonir nam to druma janma bhajo Shaitrani nanu brajato harer yo. Parhayate te nayane naranam lingani vishnur cha nirakshato ye padonir nam to druma janma bhajo Shaitrani nanu brajato harer yo. Hare Krishna. Vaishnavis, ladies. Okay. Barhayite, like the plumes of a peacock. Te, those. Nayane, eyes. Naranam, of men. Lingani, forms. Vishnu, of the personality of Godhead. Na, does not. Nirikshita, look upon. Yea, all such. Pado, legs. Nirnam, of men. To, those. Druma Janma, being born of the tree. Bhajo, like that. Sechani, holy places. Na, never. Anubrajata, goes after. Hare, of the Lord. Yo, which. Translation. The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, his forms, name, quality, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of the peacock. And the legs, which do not move to the holy places, where the Lord is remembered, are considered to be like tree trunks. Let's say together, the eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead Vishnu, his forms, name, quality, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of the peacock. And the legs which do not move to the holy places, where the Lord is remembered, are considered to be like tree trunks. Purport. By His divine grace, ISKCON's founder Acharya, the savior and the uplifter, Patita Pavana, Patita Udaran of the most fallen, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Especially for the householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu. Forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, or Sita Ram especially, or any other form of the Lord like Nrsimha, Varaha, Gaurnitai, Matsya, other forms of the Lord like, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagram Shila, and many other forms of Vishnu, like Trivikram, Keshava, Achyuta, Vasudev, Narayan, and Damodar, as recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas, and one's family should worship strictly following the directions and regulations of Archana Vidhi. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and all the members of the household should be engaged in the daily service of the Lord, beginning from morning 4 a.m. till night 10 p.m. by performing Mangal Artik, Niranjana, Archana, Puja, Kirtan, Shringar, Bhoga, Vaikali, Sandhya Artik, Pata, Bhoga at night, Syana Artik, etc. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householders to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simple theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas the archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge, and that is the guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. The training of devotional service for a neophyte devotee completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead his disciple to make gradual progress toward the path back home, back to Godhead. One should not become a pseudo-spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditures. One must be an expert spiritual master to deliver the disciple from the clutches of impending death. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of a spiritual master, and one of the verses in that description reads, Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanman Dira Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Chaniyanjatopi Vandegaro Shri Charanaravindam. Shri Vigraha is the archa, or suitable worshipful form of the Lord, and the disciple should be engaged in worshiping the deity regularly by shringar, by proper decoration and dressing, and also by mandir marjana, the matter of cleansing the temple. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name, quality, form, etc. of the Lord. Only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in dressing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtan and spiritual instructions from scriptures, can save the common man from the hellish cinema attractions and rubbish sex songs broadcast everywhere by radios. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, he should go to another's temple where all the above performances are regularly executed. Visiting the temple of a devotee and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed in a well-decorated, sanctified temple, naturally infuse the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Formerly, all rich men, like kings and rich merchants, constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord, like the 6 Goswamis. And it is the duty of the common man to take advantage of those temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following in the footsteps of great devotees, Anubraja. One should not visit all these sanctified pilgrimage places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and be guided by proper men who know the science. This is called Anuraga. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, even in visiting temples and the holy places of pilgrimage. One who does not move in that way is as good as a standing tree condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose of such traveling tendencies could be fulfilled by visiting the holy places established by great acharyas, and thereby not being misled by the atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapinam Nena Bhutale Svayam Rupaganamayam Dadati Svapadantiham Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganathan Vidham Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadudam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidhamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sarito Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumada Shrimad Ratnagara Sringasanasto Shrimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prastalabi Savyamano Smarami. In a temple of jewels, underneath the desire trees in Vrindavan, seated upon an effulgent throne, a divine couple, Shri Shri Radha and Govinda, there served by their most confidential associates. We beg to offer our respectful obeisances unto them. Shriman Rasarasarambi Bamsi Bhattatatastita Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Shriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Brindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare Parhiyate Nate Nayana Naranam Lingani Vishnurna Nirakshito Ye Padonirnam To Juma Janma Bajo Setrani Nanu Brajato Hererio. The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, his forms, name, quality, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of the peacock. And the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like tree trunks. So this chapter is a transitory chapter in one sense, that Sutta Goswami Shaunaka Rishi was greatly impressed by Sutta Goswami's transparent via mediaship of presenting thus far the first two chapters of this second canto, wherein Shukadeva Goswami has made his appearance. That's the last chapter, the appearance of Shukadeva Goswami of the first canto, and has spoke very strong and powerful first answers to Maharaj Parikshit. What is the duty of every man, and especially for the man about to die? Basically, every man is a man about to die, and the duty of everyone in all situations is to glorify the Lord and render him pure devotional service. Shaunaka Rishi was impressed by this and is petitioning Sutta Goswami to speak further, and Sutta Goswami is speaking these very strong verses, verse 17 through 2 more, 24, both by rising and setting the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one utilizing the time by discussing the topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. And perhaps one of the most commented upon verses and analogous subject matter of Srila Prabhupada: men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Praise those who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna that deliver from evils. So these verses, they are basic and actually dealing with the material world, but it's based on the vision of a completely pure devotee understanding the perverted reflection that people are involved in this material world. Prabhupada has said false enjoyment. And these dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, these four animals, their foolishness and their folly is pointed out, comparing them to what many people consider to be highly praiseworthy and emulatable or followable personalities in this world. The dog, he's very, very loyal to his master, but unless he gets a good master, then he's just has to be like a street dog and just go from one place to the other hoping to get a scrap of bread, and he's usually driven out. Hut! And so the modern university education, which trains one to be completely dependent upon the materialistic system and beg for a job. You're all trained up in the university. You're not trained up how to be self-sufficient in simple living and high thinking. You're not trained up to be an independently thoughtful Brahmin, one who understands the difference between matter and spirit. You're trained up to be completely dependent upon the materialistic, capitalistic, or communistic system, and your only idea of happiness and enjoyment is in flickering sense gratification in this material world. So that is the dog. And then the hog, where is stool? Where is stool? So material enjoyment in the material world is likened unto looking for stool. Where is stool? And it's stool is stool, whether it's wet stool or dry stool, or it's stool in a different container or a different shape. You can buy different Play-Doh things and think you're like little kids. You're making a choo-choo train, Thomas the Train, or you're making cookies, but it's all stool. So this realization actually is a very high realization for people to come to, and especially here in our Western preaching, we have to be very, very compassionate and sensitive to guide people step by step so they can understand actually that all types of material enjoyment, all types of activity or so-called enjoyment separate from the pleasure of the Lord is simply looking to eat stool. Camels, they're enjoying the so-called pleasure of eating thorn bushes, which simply cut their mouth and the blood starts flowing, and they think that this is a very nice taste, but actually they're just enjoying the taste of their own blood. So that is compared to the materialist's attraction and attachment to sexual pleasure, which is actually the number one binding principle in this material world. And the whole goal and scope and path of Vedic ascent is to bring one to be completely detached from sex enjoyment, which is the imitation and perverted reflection of the conjugal love of the divine couple, which is the source of all perfection and the source of all happiness and eternal life for all living beings. So getting free of this desire, this perverted reflected desire, is the number one goal of the sincere, aspiring truth seeker, transcendentalist, and ultimate devotee of the Lord. And any so-called religious or spiritual concocted method which either ordains or even worse promotes this and calls it spiritual is cheating number one. Asses. They work so hard, and they don't have to work at all hard because everything is provided. That human society not understanding that Krishna, and Prabhupada describes the peace formula, one who understands that Krishna is the chief beneficiary of all living entities, they become peaceful. And how can you be peaceful if you're working like an ass in the rat race? It's not a very peaceful situation. Especially more and more that we're advancing. I remember when I was growing up in the 1960s, my father was working, my mother was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. He went out the door at like 8:45 in the morning. His office and place was just 15-minute drive away. And he was back by 5:15, 5:30 at night. And we were an upper middle class neighborhood in Long Island. and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, forget it. Both parents have to work, and 9 to 5, that kind of thing went out the window with the hoop skirt, right? What do people work these days?
It could be 12, 13, upwards to 15.
Yeah. The general mass of people, unless they are trained for a higher standard of life and spiritual values, are no better than animals. So, that's a little recap. All these verses. Now here today, the eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead are like those printed on the plumes of the peacock. When I read this verse, I communed somewhat with the peacock fanning Srila Prabhupada. And of course, the peacock is a very, very beautiful animal. And actually, the role is reversed in terms of male and female peacocks, is that the male peacock is very, very beautiful, whereas the female peacock is kind of homely by comparison. But anyway, Krishna, he is very fond of peacocks, and in his Goloka Vrindavan, the peacocks, all exalted Nityasiddha, pure devotees, Krishna enjoys the beauty that they display. And he chooses to wear a peacock feather in his mukut, in his crown. And it's very, very beautiful. But, so the idea is that you might have beautiful eyes, you might be, like Miss America or Miss Universe, or, like the highest paid model in New York and Paris, and men are attracted to look at your eyes. But if your eyes are not beautified by seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then your eyes are dead. You're not, the use of your eyes is there's no meaning. So an interesting analogy, and of course Prabhupada takes the opportunity in most of the two subjects in this purport to discuss the necessity of deity worship, especially for the householder. So the householder is that we're living together as husband and wife, and that duality of male and female, there's all tendency to fall from the spiritual position. It's actually one who lives as a proper grihasta, following the rules and regulations. It's called a grihasta brahmachari. And I remember there was one of my godbrothers, he decided to take grihasta life as very young, like 1980, 1981. We were all like less than 25 years old. And, as, young and fanatical brahmacharis might do, they'll make fun, like, And I was listening to Raghunath and Kastuba's Wisdom of the Sages. They had Vishaka Devi there, and she just was described, the Bhakti Lata, when it first grows up, it's very, very tender and very, very vulnerable, and anything can just come and like knock it down, or a slight kick and it could be crushed. Maybe it won't recover. So the tendency is of those who are aspiring for the terrace of detachment from the material world, albeit by the bona fide method of trying to renovate their original love for Krishna, they'll see the objects of sense enjoyment or allurement that is threatening their very weak or very hardly developed strength and detachment, and they'll become like, they'll show like anger and aversion, which is simply the flip side of attachment. And she made a very interesting statement. She said, this is part of the process. You can't hasten it, and you just have to, like if you're the recipient of it or you're the witness of it, you have to have very deep compassion. And she was relating that how when her coming to Krishna consciousness was from a very extraordinary position, one of like atheism and skepticism. She didn't choose to be there initially, but Prabhupada, the depth of his compassion and his spiritual potency and love just broke down very nicely all of her barriers. They had said, Prabhupada, could you recommend a quaint Indian village that we can photograph for our, Asia American magazine or whatever? And Prabhupada looked at them sternly. They were boyfriend and girlfriend, Jean and John, not initiated. You are foreigners, you don't know the language, you'll simply be cheated, and all your photography equipment will be stolen. And then Prabhupada looked at them and said, you should go to Vrindavan and do your... And just, the paradigm of people having practically nothing, especially the widows of Vrindavan, they've been deposited on the doorstep of God at the last stage of their life, and how happy they were, and how they were actually giving something, and she was just so much amazed by that month in Vrindavan. And then they were transferred to Calcutta. I forget exactly for what reason, to help publish one of the first Vyas Puja books. And Calcutta Calcutta city is a very heavy place to live, especially when you come from Vrindavan. And to add insult to injury, the devotees weren't getting along, and they were fighting over trifles, and it was very, very difficult. Not an easy place for an uncommitted newcomer to come. And the mantra that everybody was telling her and just kind of kept her alive and not leaving and going back to university and increasing her degree and etc. was that Prabhupada is coming soon. You can't leave. That was 2 months. So deity worship is very important for one and all to reverse the bodily conception of life, from my body to Krishna's body. Prabhupada has said that all the services are valuable and praiseworthy, most certainly. For the overall mission, if Prabhupada has desired it and wanted it, it's glorious, and everyone can go back home, back to Godhead, just the same as someone else in the other service. But to worship the deity is the topmost position. The pujari, he's dressing the deity. It's the same thing you're doing with this body, is the same thing you'll be doing with your siddha swarup, with your spiritual body in the spiritual world. This is advanced. You could look at it's mentioned the 6 Goswamis. They engaged householders and they built great temples, but we see Rupa Goswami Prandane, the life and soul of Srila Rupa Goswami. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, similarly Madan Mohan, Sanatana Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Prandane, Shri Radha Raman, etc., etc., etc. Sometimes I don't hear it so much these days, but Prabhupada Prandane, and the deities that he duly installed himself. So we're very, very fortunate, as Shri Radha Govinda, they weren't installed per se with an elaborate ceremony, but they came from the Jaipur Pandal in January 1972. And as Yamuna Devi, in her book put together by Dina Tarani, she is affirmed that Prabhupada considered these deities used in these pandals because they were worshipped in his presence, and he spoke before them that they were already installed. And in other words, Prabhupada considered these pandal programs Harinam Sankirtan festivals with artik and prasad, boga offering, prasadam distribution, and speaking Bhagavad Gita, Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and his disciples performing Harinam Sankirtan. The deities are installed. And of course, Prabhupada said New York is the most important city in the world. So we could arguably, we could try to, then Radha Govinda are the most important deities in the world because they're in the most important temple in the most important city in the world. So, what is it? Worship, the appearance of the Lord as the Archa Vigraha is the most important benediction for the newcomer. And Prabhupada goes on to say in the purport that visiting the temple, it says the temple of a devotee, so this is Prabhupada's temple, temple of the Lord, and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed, in a well-decorated, sanctified temple. The memoir of Shama Sundar, when they came to Vrindavan for the first time, the place was, or Radha Damodar, the place was practically, what is the word? Like bombed out, or like just dilapidated and just abandoned. But Prabhupada renovated the life of Vrindavan. These are the temples before Prabhupada's explosion of the Hare Krishna movement. They maybe have one or two dresses, and everything was dirty, not changed, and just kind of like, it was just, the deity would just be maybe wearing like a cotton chadar or something, and just no garlands, or just maybe plastic or paper garlands or something, and just not very impressive. But see, Prabhupada, his temples, how many day dresses and night dresses are here? Did you ever categorize that? I know in Vrindavan, they get something like 8 and 6 a year new. And after maybe 2 years, 3 at the max, the outfits are retired. So actually, I think, now that comes to my memory, they have maybe 45 to 60 day dresses. So you might not even see the same day dress for 2 whole months, and night dresses maybe 30. And I had the great fortune to do some deity worship in Vrindavan, and they have immediate paraphernalia in Elmira's on the sides of the altars and in the back, and then each Gaura-Nitai, Krishna Balaram, Radha Shama Sundar, Lalita Vishaka, they each have their own rooms in the basement, which are maybe like 15 by 15 feet wide, and mukuts, and like effulgences, and just so many things. And actually, our desire for variety, in all things, it's in dressing or in seeing different colors, and take an LSD trip and experience, If you're giving Krishna the opportunity to enjoy so many different variegated looks. Krishna, how do you look like this? We hold up the mirror, check your, see what we've done, and Prabhupada, meditation. See how Krishna is enjoying Radharani's company. How Radharani is enjoying Krishna's. Such nice meditation. But no, they want to go to the cinema and just see some imitation. Krishna meditations infuses the mundane naturally. It's not unnatural. It's a natural process. So we invite people to come to see Radha Govinda. Naturally infuses the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. In the 7th canto, I believe the chapter, Ideal Family Life, or Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, all the temples in the Krishna, and it's a Narada Muni is telling to Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he's listing all these different holy places, all throughout India should be visited. That's the second part, we'll get to that in due course, but just a quick touch. You're using your legs to go to the temple or to travel to holy places. This is the proper use. So if you use your legs to bring you to the disco, to the brothel, to the harness racetrack, off-track betting, this, that, the other thing. Better you just, your legs become roots and you just stay in one place so you don't get yourself into trouble. It's like the little toddler. Okay, Joey and Susie, I think you're going to have some time-out time now. spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Yes. So then Prabhupada, he takes an amazing transcendental liberty, as he certainly can, as Nityananda Swarup Shakti Tattva Avesh, Sakya Avesh Avatar, Nityasiddha Parikar, founder Acharya of the Krishna consciousness movement. Similarly, all the temples outside of India where the deities of Radha and Krishna, Gaurnitai, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Sita Rama are installed, must be, doesn't just say should, he said must be worshipped. The temples established by the Krishna consciousness movement are the best places to make advancement in spiritual life. So I remember the video that Hansarupa Prabhu made shortly after gaining the legal right to take charge of this building, this yatra, this temple in November 2018, that our goal is to make New York ISKCON as much a desired place to be visited by devotees as much as Mayapur and Vrindavan. Of course, it's going to take some time to work to that position, but that's our goal. And why not? So, like the boomerang effect, Prabhupada was very much frustrated in India trying to start the Krishna consciousness movement. And his idea was, I will make the Americans and Europeans devotees, and I will bring them back and show to the Indians, and they will rethink their culture. And that in Prabhupada's Antya Leela, that was being, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was glorifying Srila Prabhupada and said, and he's saying, the very progressive thinking, Prabhupada, yes, my idea worked. And so, Prabhupada started the Krishna consciousness movement here in New York. Wear it on your t-shirt, 26 2nd Avenue, the place where it all began, right? The incorporation description in Planting the Seed, Volume 2. It wasn't just a former curiosity shop, a storefront turned into a temple. It was a sacred place of pilgrimage, a place dedicated to the propagating the teachings of Krishna and the personality of Godhead. It was a place where an army of devotees could issue forth and chant the holy names of God in every street, in every city of the world. And just all emanate out of the little storefront. Small, bare, and impoverished as it was the birthplace of the Hare Krishna movement. So New York has very great potency. Prabhupada left Vrindavan, went to New York, started the movement, and brought it back to Vrindavan, and even as early as December 1970 or 70? Anyway, or 71. The address, formal statement by the mayor of Vrindavan. You worshipped Her Majesty Srimati Radharani in the Radha Damodar Mandir in a deeply devotional and meditative mood, and thus you have now been blessed with the authority to deliver the entire world. And so much praise was lavished on Srila Prabhupada, and people were deeply amazed. Actually, we'll give you a little gift, a little preview from tomorrow, which you could have already told, I wish I had gotten this verse. So Prabhupada in the purport. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Śrīmati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Śrīmati Radharani is I always remember saying, is the tender-hearted feminine counterpart of the supreme whole, resembling the perfectional stage of the worldly feminine nature. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to the sincere devotees. And once she recommends such a devotee to Lord Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. Okay, so we've gone over time as we normally do. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any quick questions or comments? I keep wanting to read the second and third illustrative story from the Purushottam Mas Mahatmya before the month is over. So another opportunity is gone. So this Purushottam month is particularly the month to worship Radha and Krishna. They are together as the presiding deity, as the presiding deities of this month. No other month is like that. And as Krishna told to Lord Vishnu when he was endowing and blessing Malmas to become Purushottam Mas, this month will be as equally worshipable as myself. Everyone should bow down and worship this month. I am endowing all of my personal qualities in this month. So it's kind of like a Gupta Kartik in a sense. It's hidden because not many people take up and it's not so much regarded for some mysterious reason or another. But if you just apply a little bit of cognizant acknowledgement of this month and sincerely try to increase, accelerate, and advance your bhakti, then the benefit is very, very great. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari